Hi, and welcome to the micro lecture on the role of pricing in the marketing mix. We talked about the 4 Ps of marketing in our marketing framework. It's the last of the steps in our process that we're looking at. We're defining our 4 Ps. Price is one that we need to take a look at. We want to find out, we're going to talk about how pricing and demand are related. And we're going to talk about some strategies, and I'm going to outline which ones you want to pick from for the purposes of doing the milestone here within this presentation. So prices are really important because they ultimately finish the value equation that we've talked about before. So I have a question for you. Have you ever sold one of your cars on your own? It's quite an adventure. It can be kind of interesting. You put the for sale signs in the windows, and you park it on a nice warm day. It's your child's birthday party that day, and you're in the store and you're coming out with a ice cream cake that is rapidly melting, and you say, I have to get this home. I've got 100 things I have to do. And you walk up to your car and you see an elderly gentleman sitting there and says, oh, is this your car? Is it for sale? And your first reaction is like, I want to say, well, yeah, what gave it away? The 3 for sale signs in the windows. But you say like, actually, it is for sale. But to be honest with you, I'm kind of in a hurry. And before you can even finish saying what you're going to say, he says, well, how much you want for it? And then you rack your brain and you say, it's like, well, gee, I wonder how much. I only thought about this generally. I didn't really think about it that specifically. Now I got to give a number out to somebody, and you blurt out a number and almost immediately regret it. And I got to tell you, that is not that uncommon. And pricing is a very important consideration. So, yep. What would you pay for a Pepsi? Why would you pay that amount of money for it? What would you pay for a Pepsi at a movie theater, and why would you pay that much for it? Those are things to consider. There's a lot of things that go into the pricing equation that don't necessarily have directly to do with the product itself. So prices are important again because this is where the price obtains value back from the customers, is basically what they're going to pay for it. You want to set an optimal pricing on your product that will maximize lots of different things. We're going to talk about those in a minute. Pricing is influenced by the company's cost, competitive pricing, and customers' willingness to pay. It can usually be easily tweaked. People have been do that quite often, especially in consumer types of products. It may vary across segments and where the product is in its life cycle. It sends signals to the market because you're paying attention to your competitors' pricing, but your competitors also paying attention to your pricing, so it influences your profitability ultimately. Okay, so I've always thought of it as being sort of a balancing act. You have to think about, okay, well, what are competitors selling products for? And the way I always looked at that was, what does my target market have in terms of alternatives to my product, and how much are they selling theirs for? We can't avoid thinking about profitability. We have to make decisions so that we make money as a company, and that is necessary to be a sustainable operation. So you can't sell it below your cost for a long period of time. Um, and then you have to think about what reflection it is on your brand strategy. So if you've got a certain type of product, you don't want to be, excuse me, you don't necessarily want to be really inexpensive because that reflects on the product. We've all thought about buying a luxury type of item, and you see it at a great discount. It's like, that seems incongruous. It sort of creates a little bit of dissonance in the mind of the consumer. And so you want to make sure that it's supportive of what your brand strategy is. So here are the 3 general strategies I want you guys to consider, and pick one for your product. There's a low price strategy, which would be like economy type pricing. Walmart claims to have invented this. I don't think it's true, but they call it everyday low prices, so that the consumer knows that they're going to pay a low price for products at your retail establishment, and it could be for anything really. So you have a low price strategy, and obviously you're doing that to appeal to the broadest segment of the market. You can have a premium pricing strategy because your product is a premium product. It's good. People value it. The value they put on it increases the amount that they're willing to pay for it, and indeed what they would expect to pay for it. They expect to pay some more money for it. Um, and then there's a strategy that means you're sensitive to market perception. What that means is that um, you have to find an optimal price that reflects how the customer views the necessity of your product in relationship to how much they're willing to pay. And there's other terms used for that. It could be target market price sensitivity. There's all kinds of different things we think about when we think about that. So in those cases, we're taking a little bit more pinpoint approach to where we settle on a price. Pricing came from basic economics. I know this is not a class in economics, so I'm not going to dwell on this. I will not, I promise. But we think of in economics there are many variations on something called the supply and demand curve. And the idea here is that demand tends to increase as the price decreases. So as you look at that line, that is the actual demand line for the product. And at a high price, we're going to sell less units. At a low price, we're going to sell more. And somewhere in there is an optimal amount that the customer is willing to pay, and it makes sense for us to sell it at. Some simple views of pricing strategies. We talked about it before. We can have a customer oriented strategy where it's high end, so the customer willingness to pay minus the markdown kind of gives us an idea of what customers are willing to pay for that product. A competitive price is sort of in the middle. We make sure that we're within a range of what our competitors sell the product for. That's the focus in that particular view. And then there's a company-based one that is really driven largely by making sure that we're making enough money on every unit that we sell. You might look at that and say it's like, well, don't companies do all three of them? They probably do, but they put a primary focus on one of those. Okay, so and when we think about pricing and profitability, we're going to talk about this more when we talk about break-even analysis. But we have to think about how much money we can make on every one that we sell, and figure out what the demand would be and what kind of profitability we're generating at that demand. So we tend to think of estimating profit based on the variable costs and the selling price minus the fixed costs, which allow us to take a look at what profit we generate depending on the volume we're at. So in general, profit increases as price increases. However, demand also decreases when price increases, so you have to be very careful how you do that. I'm going to bring up, just this be the last economic subject I'm going to bring up, is called price elasticity, and it has to do with, okay, so if that's true that the demand is going to go up or down based on what the price is, there's certain products we know that the demand doesn't change as much as the price goes up or down as other products, which might change almost immediately in a pretty dramatic way. So when we think about the demand barely changes with a price increase or decrease, that means it's an inelastic demand curve. And if it's elastic, it changes a lot when the prices change, what people are willing to buy. So think of like gasoline as an example, an inelastic product typically, because we know we need gasoline to fuel our cars, to get to work, to go to school, to whatever it is that we're doing. So we're fairly inelastic. The demand curve on gasoline is fairly inelastic. So when the price goes up, eventually maybe demand goes down, but not as much as you might think. Certainly not in the short term. So other factors that drive demand, demand will increase the customer's desire for the brand increases. So that's why we want to promote our brand and make sure that it's, we have to have it. Nike gets a lot of money for their shoes because people really want Nike shoes, so it's the value of the brand drives up the demand. Perceptions of the product's benefits and brand images increase. We see that in certain products today where they add to sustainability of our environment, and and people are willing to pay for that. So they're paying for a higher price for those types of products. Competitive products are poor or priced at a higher price. That will increase our demand. And there's very few good substitutes, which is not normally the case, but we know that there's cases like that as well. Um, so price sensitivity is greater when customers don't care as much about the purchase, don't have strong preferences, don't have strong brand loyalty, have limited income. All those things drive to a greater price sensitivity. The item itself is a luxury rather than a necessity is a factor. There are lots of different substitutes for it, so I don't have to buy that one. I can buy another one. And the purchase is large relative to income, so a really expensive item is we have much more sensitivity to the price. And then ultimately, in today's world, it's very easy to compare prices. So guess what? That also adds to the factor of price sensitivity. If you're going to go about doing a low price strategy, you have to be really, really careful about that to make sure that you're covering your costs. We're going to talk about break even in the next lecture, um, but it gives you an idea of what how that works. You need to determine if you want to have a constant low price strategy like Walmart or fluctuating one like Kohl's. Kohl's will put things, as you know, the retailer Kohl's has promotions going all the time. So pricing promotions also come into play into this. Okay, so that's our brief overview of the role of pricing. Next, we're going to talk about break-even analysis. Certainly, if you have any questions about any of this, please let me know. And there's going to be a few more micro lectures on the topic of pricing.